Hey students, today we will be taking a look at the 4 past tense forms. If you don't know how to use the following, stay until the end. I will be giving you examples of how they can be used in part 2. Let's get cracking.
Once upon a time, there was an old poet, and he was a good, kind man. One evening, there was a terrible storm going on outside. As he was sitting at home, the rain was pouring down, but the poet sat comfortably in his chimney corner where the fire was burning. "There will not be a dry thread left on the poor people who are out in this weather," he said. Later on that night, he hears, "Open the door! I am so cold and wet," called a little child outside. He was crying and knocking at the door, whilst the rain was pouring down and the wind was rattling all of the windows. "Oh, poor little creature," said the poet, and got up and opened the door. Before him stood a little boy. He was naked, and the water flowed from his locks. He was shivering with cold. If he had not been let in, he would certainly have perished in the storm. "Come inside. I will warm you and make you some hot milk," the poet said. The boy's eyes sparkled like 2 bright stars. He looked like a little angel, but was pale with cold and trembling all over. In his hands he held a splendid bow and some arrows which had been spoilt by the rain. The old man then gave him some hot milk, which quickly revived him, so that with reddening cheeks he sprang up and began to dance. "Oh, you are a happy boy," said the man. "What is your name?" "My name is Cupid," he answered. "Don't you know me? Here is my bow. Let me shoot you with it." Drawing back the string, he took an arrow, aimed, and shot the old poet right in the heart, and he laughed loudly and ran away. What a naughty boy! The poet had taken him into his warm room and had been so good to him. He lay upon the floor crying in disbelief. "Oh," he cried, "how could he?" And he picked up his phone to call an ambulance. At the hospital, he met a beautiful nurse who healed him, and his heart felt lighter. When he told her how he felt, the feelings were not mutual, as she was already wed. The poor poet's heart was broken again, and he blamed Cupid's arrow. He swore, "I shall warn the whole world about Cupid, so that they take care and don't get hurt." And so, everybody whom he had warned about this were on their guard against wicked Cupid, but he deceives them all the same, for he is very sneaky. Even when the people go to church to speak to God, he is amongst them too. In fact, he is always after people. He sits in the theatre and blazes away so that people think he is a lamp, but they soon get their hearts shot. Yes, once he shot your father and mother in the heart too. Just ask them, and you will hear what they say. Cupid is a very bad boy, and you should stay away. He even shot an arrow at old Grandma when she was walking on the beach, but that was a long time ago. Although the wound has long been healed, such things are never forgotten. So now you know what a bad boy this wicked Cupid is. You must remember to protect your heart.
The past simple is typically formed by adding ed to the end of the infinitive. For instance, worked, talked, played, called, and wanted. A lot of my students make the mistake of pronouncing it like this: worked, talked, but the ed is actually pronounced more like a T. Worked, talked. The only time the ed is pronounced like ed is when the word already ends in a t or a d. And there are also many exceptions. For example, broke, brought, bought, felt, left, met, sent, thought, understood, wore, and wrote. Here are some ways you can use the past simple. Something that happened once in the past. We went to Spain for our holidays. Something that happened several times in the past. When I was a boy, I walked 5 miles to school every day. Something that was true for some time in the past. I lived abroad for 6 years. We often use expressions with ago with the past simple. For instance, I met my husband a long time ago. The past continuous is formed by the past simple of to be and adding the ing form of a verb. For instance, I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, they were, working, talking, playing, calling, wanting. Here are some ways you can use the past continuous. For something which happened before and after another action. The children were eating their dinner when I got home. Compare it to, the children ate their dinner when I got home, which means they ate after I got home. The use of the past continuous is very common at the beginning of a story. The other day, I was waiting for a bus when... For something that happened before and after a specific time. It was 8 o'clock and I was writing a letter. To show that something continued for some time. My head was aching. For something that happened again and again. They were meeting secretly after school. To show change or growth. My hair was going grey. The past perfect is formed by using the phrase had and the past participle. I had, you had, he had, she had, it had, we had, they had. Walked, talked, played, called, wanted. While many past participle verbs are the same as the past simple, many of them also change. For example, done, eaten, seen, broken, taken, written. Here are some ways the past perfect can be used. For something that started in the past and continued up to a given time in the past. She didn't want to move. She had lived in the UK all her life. For something that happened several times before a point in the past and continued after that point. He had written 3 songs and he was working on another one. When we are reporting our experience up to a point in the past. My 20th birthday was the worst day I had ever had. For something that happened in the past and is important at a later time in the past. I couldn't get into my house. I had lost my keys. We often use expressions with for and since with the past perfect. I was sad when the school closed, since I had worked there for 10 years. The past perfect continuous is formed by had been and the ing form of a verb. For instance, I had been, you had been, he had been, she had been, it had been, we had been, they had been, working, talking, playing, calling, wanting. Here are some ways that you can use the past perfect continuous. For actions which started before a particular time in the past and were still in progress up to that time in the past. I had been working at the company for 5 years when I got the promotion. When, for, and since, and before are words that you may see used alongside the past perfect continuous. He had been throwing rocks at her window for 5 minutes before she finally came out on the balcony. To indicate an action that occurred over a period of time and was interrupted by another event. For example, he had been playing football when he sprained his ankle. To express a cause of a past situation or action, for example, the road was wet because it had been raining. To emphasize the duration of an action or situation that occurred before another past event. For example, she was out of breath because she had been running for hours. If you want to keep learning, click on the video that pops up here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.